All right, chapter 1, how our brains shape the world. What is the essence of that chapter?
We used to think in science that the brain grew till the age of about 17, 18 years old, and then was static our whole lives after that. But with the discovery of neural plasticity, first of all in the 1960s, and then later on rediscovery in the 80s and 90s, that we began to realize that our brains are changing, and often they're changing radically and rapidly. And so the old model of the static brain has given way to a new model of a dynamic brain. The work of Nobel laureate Eric Kandel showed that if you pass a signal through a bundle of neurons over and over and over again for an hour, that the number of synaptic connections, the number of connections in that neural bundle can double in 1 hour.
Wow.
So what I point out to people is that your brain is not static. As you use your brain, as you use neural circuits, you literally increase them. Now, this is wonderful if you're learning to play the piano, you're learning Italian, you're learning to relate to your husband or your wife or your new child or your dying parent or whoever it is. If you're learning a new skill, it's powerful, but there's a dark side to it. And the dark side is that if you have signals passing through the circuits that are carrying the signals of anxiety, of fear, of anger, of resentment, of guilt, of blame, of shame, of negative emotions, those are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. According to the World Health Organization and the NIMH in the US, depression lasts about 8 months. The average course of depression lasts, you go into depression and you come out again. Anxiety as well. People can get anxiophobic and they often do recover. PTSD, they don't. With PTSD, they often get worse and worse and worse. And like in our nonprofit called the Veteran Stress Project, we treat veterans with PTSD. We get calls from husbands and wives and daughters and sons and parents of veterans who say that things like, you know, my husband got back from Vietnam in 72, and here it is more than 40 years later, and he's getting crazier. What do I do? How can I help? Because if you're passing those signals through the circuits that govern hypervigilance and flashbacks and nightmares and avoidance and all the symptoms of PTSD, you get worse and worse. One of the guys who really helped me get EFT into the VA, EFT is this technique we use to treat PTSD, and he got back from Vietnam in 1972, and he swore he didn't have PTSD. He said, I'm fine, and he looked fine on the outside. In 1996, okay, this is 30 years later, he woke up one night and he had his hands around his wife's neck and he was strangling her in his sleep. At that point, he said, I think I have a problem. He then went into the VA. We treated him with EFT. He learned heart math, another great method, and he recovered fully. But that's the insidious thing about negative thinking, negative emotions, catastrophizing, all of those things. If you're passing that signal through those neural circuits over and over and over again, your brain is changing. So that's why I really urge people to learn techniques like meditation, like EFT, because you then kick in positive neural plasticity. And the case history I have in chapter 1, Rena, this case, when I read this case history, I wanted to tell the world it was so remarkable that it just absolutely stunned me. So I told the story in chapter 1 of a really skeptical journalist. His name was Graham Phillips. He was an astrophysicist, but he worked as a TV journalist. He didn't believe in any of this woo-woo stuff that you and I talk about at all. He was a hard-bitten, he was a manly man. He was we call him in the UK a rugger bugger, guys who play rugby. He was a sports person and rugged individualist, but he heard about meditation. So he said, I'm going to take an 8-week meditation course. And because he was a TV journalist, he did it all on TV, and he went into the local university, and they gave him a comprehensive battery of tests, including MRIs, and they measured all the different parts of his brain, the different lobes of his brain, the different substructures within each part of his brain. They mapped his brain comprehensively with an MRI. And so that was day 1. Then in 2 months, 8 weeks later, he went back into that same university, Monash University, and they did a second set of tests with him and a second brain scan, a second MRI, and they found, taking a sip of water here for dramatic effect.
Yes.
And they found.
And they found.
And they found.
Cue suspense music.
They found changes in his brain in just 8 weeks. And the part of the brain that had grown the most is called the dentate gyrus, and it governs emotional regulation across different areas of the brain. So if you have a big, bulky dentate gyrus and a lot of information flow in that, then you don't get triggered by other drivers on the road, or by things your colleague says, or by your wife, or your husband, or your daughter, or whoever it might be in your life. So you're much calmer if you have the ability to regulate your emotions. Regulating your emotions is the key to happiness. If you aren't hijacked by negative emotions, or even positive ones, then you have a stable life. They found Graham Phillips's brain. They found that in 8 weeks, his dentate gyrus grew by 22.8%.
Wow.
In 8 weeks. That's how fast our brains are remodeling themselves in response to our minds, our consciousness. When we change our consciousness, we literally change the hardware of our bodies.
And how old was he at the time?
He was around 45, late 40s.
Yeah, so I'm older than that, so that means I still have hope, right? Because one of the challenges, Dawson, we face is people think, well, gosh, I'm too old now. And I think our society kind of feeds into that. You know, those of you who've heard my interviews, you know, that's what I was told over and over again, like, get over it, lady. You're getting older, deal with your symptoms. Like, don't be a whiny baby about this. What do you expect? And I'm so encouraged when I hear stories like this, where you say, no, it was a middle-aged man who was able to dramatically improve his quality of life simply from a 6 weeks or 8 weeks or however long a different person might take of meditation. And how often do you think he meditated?
He was doing daily mindfulness and meditation. So he was really practicing that sincerely. So
how long do you think in a given day, though?
How long was meditation?
Yeah.
What I find, I've done a lot of EEGs of people meditating, and we find that it takes them a certain amount of time to learn that kind of calm state, and then they drop in. So there's acquiring the state. And what matters is less how long you meditate than how long it takes you to drop into that state. And so that's when the meditation really starts. For me, when I was meditating initially, it took me about 40 minutes to drop in, and then I might have had 20 minutes of real meditation. But now we've refined these techniques, and we have them all online. And now we get people there. Like I have large groups. I teach people at Esalen and Omega, the New York Open Center. I teach at all these teaching institutions. And we sit them down, we have them close their eyes. They go through a set of mechanical instructions, telling their body to do various postures, breathe in a certain rhythm. And we know within 90 seconds on the first day, 1.5 minutes on the first day, they're there. There's a lady who emailed us last week. We put up her email up on our website. Just a beautiful story. Her name is Toni Tomlinson, and she said, I'm overwhelmed. I'm a mom with kids. I have no time. I try to meditate. I've always failed. And I sat down to do your meditation, and my mind said, Toni, you're just wasting your time. You've never been able to get to that state. You won't be able to do it now. And she said, I just began to do the breathing you recommend. And suddenly my heart was full of bliss. My eyes filled with tears, and I was there. And then she said, I'm going to do this every day. And that's what I want to do, is inspire people with a simple meditation method to spend just a little while. So it takes you just 90 seconds to be in this deep, deep state. And then I recommend at least 15, 20 minutes, if you have time, 40, 45 minutes, but at least 15 or 20 minutes to stabilize yourself and to start that process of neurogenesis. You're now building your emotional regulation capacity. You're building good things in your brain, in your mind, in your body, so that you're resilient. You have the ability to handle life's challenges, and you aren't just at the whim of fate. And
that you're able to enjoy the beauty of life, because sometimes you know, our daily life gets in the way of truly enjoying life. So I do the Shambhavi Mahamudra, which is Sadhguru's 21-minute meditation. And bam, at the end of 21 minutes, I'm happy and blissful and giggling, and I can feel the love around me, and I can hear music, and no, I'm not crazy. It's so beautiful. I don't know why more people don't do it. So how can we get more people to do it before we dive into the next chapter? Do you have some links we can share? Are there audio downloads? Tell us a little bit about access.
People don't do it because it's hard. When you were reading my bio and mentioning things that I've done, I thought, I should also include in that bio, failed meditator. Because I learned to meditate when I was 15 years old, and I was never very regular about my practice or very successful. It's just hard. Like in the meditation center, when I was learning meditation at 15, the teacher said, meditation is simple. All you do is you sit down in this posture and you still your mind. And I'm like, still my mind? Are you crazy? Still my mind.
What a
And now I'm in
joke.
my 60s. I've never been able to still
Classic.
my mind. So that's why people that meditate, they close their eyes, sit there, and thoughts flood into their minds. So what I did was I designed about 10 years ago, I designed a really simple meditation called ECO meditation, ECO meditation. And I teach that in the book Mind to Matter. I also have links to the website.
Okay.
Also, there's a wonderful app called Insight Timer. It's the world's biggest meditation app. And I have many meditations on Insight Timer that guide you through eco meditation. But it has 7 really simple steps to it, and they're mechanical. They do not involve stilling your mind. They do not involve believing in anything or taking a course or having any kind of religious orientation. They're just mechanical things you do with your body. So it turns out if you just do certain things with your certain muscle groups in your body, you enter this very, very deep state, the same physiological state as a master meditator. So you're mimicking the physiology of a master meditator. And it turns out when you do that, mimic it, you're there in 90 seconds. So at Esalen, for example, the workshops, we'll measure people with an EEG. And on day 1, they're there in 90 seconds. By day 2 or day 3, they're there in under 30 seconds. And then meditation is really effective. So you just do 20 minutes, 30 minutes after that, and you're then in that deep space.
Brilliant. Well, we're going to go ahead and put all that in the show notes.